put Jamaican music on the map internationally.
He's also very significant, I think, because he's one of those rare figures that come along perhaps once in a generation, who by some chemistry of themselves, their own genius, takes what is up to then, just a folk form, and makes it a part of the universal art of the world.
But Bob Marley wanted nothing to do with party politics. Yet when he was approached by the then Jamaican Prime Minister Michael Manley offering to stage a free concert, he agreed. On the night of the 25th of November 1976, assassins crept into Bob Marley's home and opened fire.
I picked up the newspaper and I couldn't believe it. It said Bob Marley shot.
5 gunmen came in and splattered the room.
I got him on the phone in Nassau and he started to tell me in detail what had happened, how they'd come in, these men, and shut up the house, and him and the musicians and his manager. And
it was never, you know, found out by the police who did it, but like I say, it's a popular theory that it was organised by the same guy, Siegel, who, when Bob died, got a posthumous Jamaican equivalent of the knighthood or whatever.
No, they tried to kill him, of course. Politician, very dangerous, you know. Politics is life and death, you know. Very selfish. To be a president in Jamaica, you have to be corrupted. Any kind of politician, you have to be corrupted. I would believe that Bob Marley was shot by a politician, you know.
He came to England and he acted out everything. He acted it out and showed me where the bullet was in his arm, because he still had a bullet in his hand. And he made me write it down. He said, you've got to write it all down. Anyway, he survived and he did the show. He still went back and he did the concert. And some people say it was political. Some people say it had something to do with some of his friends who attached themselves to him.
He did the gig wearing a bandage, and I think it was Rita Marley got shot in the head. She did the gig in a nightie with a bandage on her head. A lot of the bands pulled out. Bob, I mean, fair play, he could have just walked on stage and been machine gunned down. You know, I mean, that really took a bit of courage to do that. But, you know, he stood there, the famous picture where he's got the 2 leaders and he's bringing their hands together. I mean, he was a sitting target there. I'm surprised he got away that lightly.
Bob's status had increasingly attracted those seeking to exploit his popularity for their gain. His refusal to be controlled by others had almost cost him his life.
Did you see him as a political figure in any way? There was an assassination attempt on him just before he was to give a concert which some people saw as being a sign of support for you in the election before last.
Yes. The political figure, yes. Political figure, no. Political figure, no, in the sense that Bob was not by temperament or mind the kind of person who would ever become, say, a part of a party. Bob wasn't at that level or on that wavelength at all. Political, yes, in that he was one of the most articulate troubadours of the ghetto, its suffering, its pressures, that I have ever heard.
Ghetto youth, tired of the constant political infighting, banded together in a mammoth reggae concert for peace. It ended with Prime Minister Michael Manley and opposition leader Edward Seaga on stage, shaking hands in an appeal for peace. The man responsible for it all, they say, was Bob Marley. But isn't what you need some sort of social, legislative change? The economic conditions are bad. You have a lot of people who are unemployed.
What's really going to happen now is that we don't really want the island to change. We want the world to change.
And his music is how he gets his message across.
No sun will shine in my
After the attempt on his life, Bob Marley exiled himself to London for 18 months.
After the shooting, first of all he took off to the Bahamas, and then he came to London, spent 18 months living in Chelsea, recording Exodus.
I shot the sheriff in his flat and finished Get Up Stand Up also here, and from here we did all the way for him to go into the recording. I cooked for them and take it. So the place has got memories.
He adapted very easily to what was going on in Britain, because I mean he chose to live in London when the punk thing was exploding.
Mick just lived down the road here, and Bianca and Marion and all of us were all very close. I introduced Bob to Mick in the street down there. And Bianca came up, rushed up. She came home, and Mick was Esther just introduced me to a musician she just brought from Jamaica. Bianca ran up here and come to meet Bob, and was just so amazing. And they actually came to the speakeasy to the gig and screamed. Bianca was at the back screaming Rastafari and everything.
It wasn't that he was the name that made him the person, you know. He was a person before the name, you know. He's a strong person. It's not a person you would say, who's that over there? You would know that there's someone over there who is like a strong person, you know. He had that kind of energy.
Oh, Bob, if you wanted to work, he's ready to work. Of course, he was a disciplinarian. If something was wrong, he would have a go.
At the studio at BBC, there was a young show-off lady, and she was behaving very bad. This is where I learned from Bob Marley. The lady was smoking a cigarette in the electrical part around the back. A old man came and said, could you hold the cigarette? The lady told him, you know, very bad words, where to go. I just heard Bob come and tell her off, in the right way. You know, he asked her, is it your name on this or is it my name? You know, properly. And I felt embarrassed for her, you see, and I walked off. And I know that he's a man, you know, because that lady was a very show-off lady, she, you know, because I'm little me, I was little, you know, a 17-year-old rasta, so, you know, she don't see you. But Bob Marley see everybody, you know. Yeah, he was good like that.
I think Bob was single-minded into the music. He wanted his family around him. When I say family, his extended family of musicians, a complex network of female company.
Miss World was living in the house, and she said, what are you a big famous movie star doing with a boy like that? And so, but I said, one day you'll all see, you know, and anyway, she ended up as Mrs. Marley or whatever.
Women used to chase that man because, as I say, of his aura.
You see the light, and then you know that all I want is just to treat you right.
He was a man who loved women, and they'd come to hit him up. He never go running after them, but like all rock stars, you know, he attract girls.
While in London, Bob heard The Clash for the first time. He admired their courage and anger in the face of England's class-based economic oppression and identified with their fight against racism and the system.
Bob came to realise that there were a lot of similarities between the punks and the young black kids in London who were getting stopped by the police. And there were a lot of similarities between, you know, his kids he knew back home in Trenchtown. Bob started off taking the mickey, but he ended up doing a record called Punky Reggae Party, which, you know, name checks the Clash. He fitted like a glove, and he was playing football, and there was a lot of, you know, regular football matches going on through 1977, including one with the Clash, I believe.
We used to link up with Bob Marley and play football and stuff like that in the team. Make a team and, you know, go out as the Wailers and play football and, you know, do quite good, you know. Never got thrashed, really, you know.
I don't know, I think the Wailers slaughtered the Clash, but they were a good team.
Could read the game, we call it. Could read the game. Strong. You're a little short man. Strong.
I asked him if he'd ever considered being a footballer as opposed to a musician, and he said never, because music's in his soul, and he made a point of saying football's too rough.
He used to like to play football, which I totally disapproved of, because I used to say, you should be, you know, you're not a football player. And so he had this friend who used to encourage him to go off to play this football. And I said, but people are waiting on you, you have to go on tour, and you should be rehearsing and writing songs. But he liked the football, and of course that's what damaged his toe, that then became malignant and created all this cancer cells in his body that took him over eventually.
In was it May 77, Bob sustained the football injury which would become the cancer. And it was Bob's passion for football which really, he kept playing. You know, he didn't stop in May 1977, he was still playing in 1980, you know, which is a bit silly, really.
By the late 1970s, Bob Marley had catapulted from the hottest new celebrity in black music to global superstar. He had become a world figurehead, like a Jamaican Martin Luther King. His records sold millions. His tours sold out, and from Asia to America, from Africa to Europe, he sang the message of Jah. But despite his fame, he never lost touch with his own humanity.